Calificas para ser legal, quieres saber, solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.
Now, last thing we're going to talk about today. 5 things to avoid being placed in deportation proceedings. You're either a green card holder or you're undocumented. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're not going to be placed in deportation proceedings unless you received your citizenship through fraud. That's a different story. Generally speaking, you're a U.S. citizen, you've had it for more than 5 years, you're safe from deportation, generally. Now, everybody else, if you commit any one of these 5 things, you could find yourself in deportation proceedings. So in the past couple of months, I've been interviewed by a number of different TV shows, NBC, CBS, ABC, Arizona TV. I've frequently talked about either immigration reform or this precise segment, 5 things to avoid being placed in deportation proceedings. Now, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to get right to it, but number 1 is domestic violence, the Rihanna situation. You have a little too much to drink, you have an argument, the police gets called, either because one of you call it, or a child calls it, or a neighbor calls it, police comes in, someone gets arrested. In this scenario, let's imagine it's the immigrant. If you're in Monmouth County, you get arrested, ICE is still there. Despite what the Attorney General said, Monmouth County made a deal with ICE anyway, and for now that's still valid. Now the Attorney General may overturn it, but for now that hasn't happened. So if you're arrested in Monmouth County and you go to freehold, you're going to get interviewed by ICE. Even if the domestic violence charges were dismissed, even if what often happens is the officer signs the complaint, not the victim. The victim is just a witness. So let's say in this scenario, my wife and I have a disagreement over whatever. Maybe I've had too much to drink. Maybe I react poorly. I say things that I shouldn't have. She says things that she shouldn't have. But the police gets called. Let's say our neighbors call. They ask her, "Are you afraid?" She says no. They ask her, "Do you want to press charges?" She says no. But there's a mark on her face, with her face is red, and fingerprints. So it looks like she was hit. The officer will arrest me and will charge me with assault and domestic violence. Now, she could then go say, "Listen, I'm not testifying against my husband. I want to withdraw the complaint." The complaint gets withdrawn, but if I'm in Monmouth County, I'm going to get interviewed by ICE. ICE is going to put me in removal proceedings, and now during the pendency of my criminal case, chances are the immigration judge won't let me out of jail. We had a scenario when even after the case was dismissed, the judge tried to prevent my client from leaving, saying, "Oh, she just removed those charges for financial reasons." She was pressured to do that. That's the kind of nonsense we're seeing. So if there's any immigration judges listening to me, I hope you understand how ridiculous that assertion is, because you're putting the standard so high, you're assuming facts not in evidence, and you're setting the standard so high, nobody will ever be released under those circumstances, because you're just making assumptions. So domestic violence, like what happened to Rihanna, can result in removal proceedings and a deportation order. Mel Gibson's mistake. Had something to drink, pulled over by the police, officer charges him with driving under the influence, gets arrested. If it's in Monmouth County, it could be just a local municipality. If it's overnight, they're going to send them to freehold. Again, if they're in freehold, now they're facing a ICE removal proceedings, even though they have not yet been convicted. That's the point. Look, if someone gets convicted of DUI, domestic violence, or whatever, and then they have to defend themselves for deportation proceedings, that's fine. Nobody wants criminals in the U.S. But that doesn't mean that just because you were charged with the crime, you're guilty of that crime. We have defended hundreds of DUIs, and we've gotten a good 30 to 40% of them dismissed or reduced to something else. Every case is unique, but at the end of the day, the judge has to prove you were operating a motor vehicle on a public roadway and under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Now, if I had a beer, that doesn't mean I'm drunk. That means I had a beer and I was driving. The officer has to prove that that I had too much to drink and I was over the limit. It's not easy if you know what you're doing and it's 2 a.m. and it's a new officer that hasn't had all the proper trainings. We can get those cases dismissed. The officer always makes mistakes. The question is, does the level of those mistakes rise to such an occasion that the municipal court judge or the criminal court judge can't trust the officer's opinion that I was drunk? So, Mel Gibson's mistake, having too much to drink, getting behind the wheel, getting convicted of a DUI, driving under the influence, can result in being placed in removal proceedings. It can also result in a judge, an immigration judge, not giving you bail, or we call it bond, because they'll find you a danger to society. So, domestic violence, first critical mistake. DUI, second critical mistake. Third critical mistake to avoid being placed in removal proceedings is not driving with a license, is driving without a license or driving with a suspended license, resulting in jail time. In New Jersey, driving without a license a second time, mandatory 1 to 5 days in jail. If you have a DUI and then you get pulled over because your license is suspended based on that DUI, even if it's your first offense for driving with suspended license, mandatory 10-day jail time. If your license is suspended and you're involved in a motor vehicle accident while you're driving and someone gets injured seriously, mandatory jail time. Driving without a license or driving with a suspended license can result in jail. There are judges like Judge Barub, who's in 4 or 5 different courts in Monmouth County. He will tell you, if this is the first time I see you, and he'll know because he'll see the abstract, driving without a license, he can put you in jail up to 15 days. And he'll tell you, if he sees you a second time with this charge, he will put you in jail. If you're in jail, you're a criminal, ICE is there, you're in removal proceedings. Now, traffic violation won't prevent me from being able to get you out, but it is not a benefit. And, defending a motor vehicle violation for $1,000, $1,500 is nothing in comparison to $15,000 to $20,000 that defending someone who's detained in immigration could cost, depending if there's appeals and trials and what have you. So it gets really expensive. Take an Uber, take a taxi. $50, $100 is a whole lot cheaper than hiring an attorney to defend you in a DUI or driving without a license. Now, fourth critical mistake, 21 Savage scenario. Here, 21 Savage qualified for legal status, but he didn't file for it until after he was detained by ICE. Don't wait. 21 Savage, it cost him $100,000 to get released from jail based on bond. It was in Atlanta, Georgia, the worst court in the country. Give you an example. Immigration Judge Angela Raines. Over the past 5 years, she's had over 200 trials. She has denied every single one. I don't know how she's still a judge. I don't know how she hasn't, she's been appealed, she's been overturned. Worst judge in the country, worst court in the nation if you're an immigrant. If you have an opportunity and you're in removal proceedings and you're in Atlanta, Georgia, move. Go somewhere else. Your chances will only go up. It can't get worse than there. But don't wait until you're in ICE custody to file for relief, because now it's so much harder. The proof is so much higher. The scrutiny is more, and it takes longer, and it's more expensive. Don't do it. Fifth critical mistake, George Clooney scenario. Here we're talking about, I've been here more than 10 years, I'm undocumented, I have 2 U.S. citizen children, one of my kids may have special needs. Now, my daughter Noemi has been getting speech therapy for the past 5 years. I don't think it's made any darn difference. She still slurs her S's. She still sounds like she's from Brooklyn, even though she's not. Go figure. But let's say she can't speak. Let's say she has a more significant deficiency. well, if I get deported and my daughter comes with me, and you better believe my daughter's coming with me, I can't live without my kids, they're going to lose, or my daughter's going to lose, the treatment and the therapy that she has here. Here in the U.S., she's an American citizen. She has insurance, whether it's private or under Obamacare or what have you. She's insured. She gets treatment. She gets doctors. In my country, she will not get it. And because of that, she will suffer extreme and unusual hardship. She will need good doctors like George Clooney in ER. So, because of that, I will, as her guardian, I will get a green card so I can be here for her, who's a U.S. citizen. A lot of people don't know about that. It's complicated. A lot of attorneys, well, there's been a number of them that have lost their license for doing things that they shouldn't have in this process, because I need to put somebody in removal proceedings, and that means you have to file for asylum, but you can't just make it up. It has to be a reasonable basis for a claim for asylum, number one, and you also have to be able to qualify for cancellation of removal. I'm afraid to go back to my home country because my children will be mistreated. I will be mistreated. The law should protect people like us under asylum. If that's denied, and I hope I win, but if it's denied, then I have to raise the claim in front of an immigration judge. The asylum claim as well as cancellation of removal. I will win on one or the other. Get my green card, and then the family is protected. So thank you for listening to us.